My name's Adrien, I'm 27, and I've never really been the favorite in the family. Not the golden child, not the rebel, not even the black sheep. Just the invisible one, the in-between, the one who quietly showed up, paid his dues, and disappeared again. It's funny how you can spend your entire life trying to be useful, helpful, easy to love, and still end up as nothing more than a backup plan when someone else cancels. That's what I was. The spare. At least that's how it's always felt. I didn't grow up hating my family. I just slowly, over time, began to realize they didn't see me as part of it in the same way. My older brother Nolan? Oh, he was the heir to the throne. Star football player in high school, married his college sweetheart, had two picture-perfect kids, and a house with matching shutters. Mom always said, "Nolan's doing so well. You should call and congratulate him on the promotion." Meanwhile, I'd quietly gotten a master's degree and launched my own business. No one asked how that was going. My younger sister Lucy, the baby of the family, artsy, unpredictable, dramatic, but always forgiven. Late on rent? It's okay, she's finding herself. Flaky with birthdays? No problem, she means well. I never got that grace. If I forgot to text back within a few hours, it was, "You're so distant these days." But I swallowed it. Every time. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, I still showed up. With gifts. I remembered allergies. I paid for Uber rides when people were too drunk. I even footed the bill when Dad had surgery and insurance didn't cover everything. No one asked me to. I just did it. I thought, maybe one day, they'll finally see me. Maybe love just works like that, eventually. So when Nolan's wife threw a surprise party for his 35th, I wasn't even surprised I didn't get a direct invite. I found out through our cousin who texted me. "You going to the thing next Saturday?" Thing. That's how I found out. I texted Mom, got a vague, "Oh, I thought Nolan told you," and decided not to make a fuss. I RSVP'd through the invite his wife never directly sent me, paid the deposit for the venue because the restaurant needed a card on file to lock it in. Nolan's wife said they'd pay me back. Spoiler, they didn't, and showed up early to help set up the cake and balloons. The restaurant was a nice place downtown, dim lighting, overhanging ferns, overpriced tapas. I booked a private back room because I knew how big our family was and how loud they get when they drink. I even arranged for a custom menu. Everything was going smoothly until the seating. There was a long, U-shaped table arrangement in the center. White tablecloths, candles. At the center of the U was a chair with balloons tied to the back. Nolan's seat. To his left and right, his wife, their kids, my mom and dad, Lucy, even our second cousins. I looked around and didn't see my name anywhere. Every place had a handwritten name card. Nolan's wife had used these artsy little gold foil tags with calligraphy. I finally found mine, on a rickety chair against the wall, near the bathroom. It wobbled when I touched it. And when I picked up the tag, it didn't even have my full name. Just A, like I was a placeholder. I tried not to make a scene. I really did. I took my seat, waited for drinks, laughed when I was supposed to, until Nolan raised his glass and loudly said, "Let's toast to actual family being here tonight." Then, locking eyes with me, he snorted and added, "You're cool too, Adrien. You can sit by the air freshener." Everyone burst out laughing. My mom tried to hide her smile behind a wine glass. Lucy was doubled over. Even the waiter standing nearby smirked. I felt it in my throat. That weird pressure, like your body's trying to decide if it wants to cry or throw up. I stared down at my plate. The napkin was monogrammed. I'd paid extra for that. I wasn't even hungry anymore. I just wanted to leave. But I didn't. I stayed. I made myself stay. The night dragged on. Drinks kept flowing. The more Nolan drank, the more he turned into this loud, smug caricature of himself. At one point, he stood on his chair and started doing impressions of each family member. Here's Dad mowing the lawn in socks and sandals. Everyone laughed. Then, here's Lucy explaining how astrology is science. More laughter. And here's Adrien. He just stood there in silence, miming someone typing at a computer and sipping tea. Because no one really knows what he does. Roaring laughter. Someone clapped. I looked around. Not one person said, "Hey, come on, that's enough." Not even my mom. She just shook her head like, "That's Nolan for you." I waited until dessert. I figured I'd at least get through the cake, then quietly excuse myself. As I was about to stand up, the waiter tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me," he said politely. "Are you Adrien?" "Yes." I said, glancing up. You're the one who made the reservation, right? He handed me a black leather bill folder. I opened it. $3,218. I blinked. It was broken down into drinks, food, cake cutting fee, extra time charge, everything. I could hear Nolan laughing somewhere behind me, probably doing another impression. I looked at the waiter, then slowly turned my head toward the table. I could see Nolan now, holding up his phone, taking selfies with his wife. Lucy was filming something for Instagram. I stared at them. My brother. Mr. Actual Family. Then I stood up, walked around the table, folder still in hand. Tapped Nolan on the shoulder. He looked up, surprised. What's up, man? You okay? I handed him the bill. Ask Mr. Actual Family, I said. It's your party, after all. His smirk twitched. Wait, what? I didn't answer. I just turned around and walked away. Out of the room. Past the bar. Through the glass doors. I didn't hear anyone following. Not at first. But just as I stepped onto the sidewalk, I heard my name. Once. Then twice. And when I turned around, it was my mom. Not Nolan. Not Lucy. Not even my dad. Just my mom, clutching her little beaded clutch like it might burst open if she let go. Adrien. Wait, she called, her heels clicking unevenly against the pavement as she caught up. Her expression was strained, half apology, half annoyance, like I'd just embarrassed her at church. I didn't say anything. I didn't feel like helping her save face. Not tonight. She finally caught up and said, in that low, performative voice she always used when she wanted to appear calm and reasonable, "Sweetheart, what was that about? You didn't have to do that in front of everyone." I blinked. Do what? You know what I mean, she sighed. You made it awkward. Couldn't you have just spoken to Nolan in private if there was an issue with the bill? I almost laughed. Spoken to Nolan in private? I wasn't even invited in the first place. I turned toward her fully, and for the first time in years, I actually looked her in the eye when I said, "Do you even know who put down their card to book that venue?" She flinched, but only slightly. Well, I assumed his wife. Yeah, I interrupted. You assumed. Like you always do. She took a breath, then gave me that thin, placating smile. Adrien, you've always been the dependable one. That's just who you are. And I know it's not fair sometimes. Not fair. I echoed, my voice sharper than I expected. I paid the deposit. I customized the menu. I brought the stupid cake, Mom. But when we sat down, I got the chair next to the bathroom. And Nolan made sure everyone laughed at me for it. She stiffened. Oh, honey, he was just joking. That's how he is. Right, I said. And I'm just supposed to take it. Again. Her lips parted like she was going to respond, but then she closed them. For a second, she just stood there. Maybe it was the streetlight, or maybe it was the fact that for once, I wasn't letting it go, but I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Guilt. Maybe recognition. Or maybe just discomfort at being forced to confront something that wasn't easy to sweep under the rug. You know what? I added, my voice steadier now. I don't need you to apologize. I don't even expect you to get it. But I'm done pretending I'm okay being treated like this. She looked down, then back up at me. Adrien, don't be dramatic. And there it was. The phrase she'd used on me since I was 10 years old, whenever I tried to stand up for myself. I didn't even bother responding this time. Instead, I turned, walked to my car, and drove home. No calls. No texts. Just silence. For the first 2 days, it stayed that way. Then came the phone calls. First it was Nolan. Voicemail 1. Bro, what was that at the party? You seriously stuck me with the bill? That's not cool, man. Voicemail 2. Are you seriously ignoring me? You made a scene in front of everyone, and now Mom's upset. Just call me back, and let's fix this. Then the text from Lucy. Screenshots of their group chat. Apparently Nolan had to cough up the $3,200 that night, and from what I gathered, it was not in his monthly budget. The words tight month and unexpected cost popped up repeatedly. There was also talk about how Adrien's always been touchy, and he probably misunderstood something again. Misunderstood. Sure. What they didn't know was that I hadn't just walked away that night. I'd started packing. Emotionally, mentally, and in some ways, literally. I didn't want to be their fixer anymore. Their silent support beam. I spent that week digging through old boxes, old memories. I looked at the Christmas gifts I gave that no one ever remembered. The framed photo of Nolan's wedding that didn't have me in it. The graduation card from Mom that said, "Congrats. Hope you find what you're looking for," smiley face. like I'd just returned from a vacation and not finished 5 years of school with honors. On Friday morning, a full 5 days after the party, my dad called. It was rare enough for him to call me directly that I actually answered. "Adrien," he said, voice low and flat like usual. "You really upset your mother." Not "I'm checking in." Not "How are you?" I didn't say anything. "She's been crying for 2 days," he added, as if that was supposed to mean something to me now. "Did she cry when Nolan made fun of me?" I asked. He paused. "That's just how he is. You know that." Another silence. I waited. He didn't fill it. "Okay," I finally said. "So what do you want me to do about it?" "I think you should apologize," he said. I laughed. Quietly. Not bitter. Just tired. "You want me to apologize for pointing to the guy who made the toast about actual family and letting him deal with the bill for the party I booked?" "You made a scene," he said simply. "No," I said. "I made a point." He didn't respond. After a moment, he muttered, "Well, you've always been the quiet one. I guess we never knew when you were upset." That line hit harder than I expected. Not because it was unfair, but because it was true. I'd kept it inside for so long that they'd mistaken my silence for contentment. Like I was okay being forgotten, overlooked, minimized. I hung up. Politely. Without yelling. Without slamming the phone. Just ended the call. That night, I got a text from my cousin. The same one who'd asked me weeks earlier if I was going to the thing. She'd been at the party too. She wrote, "Hey, I just want to say I saw what happened. And I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. I don't think they realize how much you've done for them." It was the first time anyone in my family had said anything like that to me. I didn't reply, but I did do something else. I opened up an old shared folder. One I'd set up years ago when Nolan first started planning family trips and group gifts. A folder full of receipts, screenshots, payment logs, all the things I quietly paid for or fronted without ever getting reimbursed. Some were small, others weren't. And at the very top of the folder, I added a PDF. Invoice for services rendered by just Adrien. I shared it with 3 people, Nolan, Lucy, and my parents. And then, I waited. The reaction was faster than I expected. Within minutes, Nolan started blowing up my phone again. Texts, missed calls, voice notes. I didn't listen to the voice notes. I didn't have the energy to hear his voice anymore. But I did read the texts. "What is this? You're seriously charging us? Are you insane? You've been holding on to this stuff for years? That's psychotic, man. Nobody asked you to pay for this sh*t. You just did it. That's on you." The last one hit exactly the nerve he wanted. I sat there staring at the screen, letting his words sink in. "You just did it. That's on you." Like I'd been some random volunteer picking up other people's slack, and now I was having a tantrum because no one clapped. But it wasn't about applause. It wasn't even about the money. It was about the principle. I didn't need them to Venmo me back for every Uber or floral arrangement. I needed them to see it. To stop pretending like I was just some background character in their perfect little family photo. The next call came from Lucy. She didn't bother texting. She just went straight to FaceTime. I almost declined it, but something in me wanted to see her face. Maybe I hoped she'd be the first to actually say, "I didn't realize. I'm sorry, but no." The moment I picked up, she leaned into the camera, whisper shouting like she was calling from a spy movie. "What are you doing?" Mom is freaking out. Dad won't even talk to her. Nolan's pacing around the living room like a psycho. "He said you're trying to blackmail us." I raised an eyebrow. "Blackmail? Don't act coy," she hissed. "You sent a literal invoice. To your own family." And I said calmly, "It's not a demand. It's a record." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd pull something. "Okay, cool. And I'm sure that makes you feel real superior right now. But why now? After all these years, why make this a big deal today?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to choose the right words. "Finally," I said, "because I finally realized no one's going to care unless I force them to see it. And because I'm tired of being laughed at while paying for the party." She froze for a second. Her mouth opened, but she had no clever comeback. Instead, she leaned back, ran a hand through her hair, and muttered, "You've always been so dramatic." That word again. Dramatic. Like I was throwing glitter on a problem that wasn't real. I ended the call without saying goodbye. That night, I started packing for real. Not emotionally. Physically. I'd been living in the same city as them for years, just a 20-minute drive from my parents' house. I'd stayed nearby thinking it meant something. That proximity meant inclusion. That if I was close, I'd be closer. I was wrong. I started boxing up my apartment. Not because I couldn't afford the rent or needed a change of scenery, but because I was leaving. I didn't know where to yet, just that it had to be far. A different city. A new start. Somewhere I wasn't Adrien, the extra one. On the third day after the invoice, I got a different kind of message. An email. From Nolan's wife. It was short. Clinical. No greeting. No punctuation. We received your invoice. This is incredibly inappropriate. Your behavior is affecting our children. Please stop immediately. I stared at the message, stunned by how sterile it was. Like she was writing an HR complaint. No mention of what happened at the party. No acknowledgement of the way I was treated. Just concern about how it looked. I didn't reply, but I did take a screenshot and added it to the folder. That same day, I got a call from the restaurant manager. Apparently, Nolan had tried to dispute the charge on the bill, claiming he never authorized it. The restaurant had my name on file, my signature, my card. They were calling to let me know the dispute would likely be denied, but if it wasn't, I could provide my own documentation. I thanked the manager and hung up. Then I added the call log to the folder too. What none of them realized, what they never realized, was that I'd been documenting things for years. Not out of bitterness. Not even consciously, at first. Just a quiet habit I developed. A way to remind myself that I wasn't making it all up. That I was there. That I had contributed. That the empty feeling wasn't just in my head. And the more they reacted like I was the villain, the clearer it became. They didn't see what they'd done because they never had to. Until now. 3 more days passed. No one else called. No one apologized. No one even pretended to want to talk it out. Until I got a knock on my door. Not a call. Not a text. An actual knock. I peeked through the peephole. It was my dad. He was standing there, arms crossed, eyes cold. And behind him, someone else. I opened the door slowly, unsure of what to expect. My dad looked me up and down like he hadn't seen me in years, even though it had only been a week. "Can we come in?" he said flatly. I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped aside, let the door creak open. And as they walked in, I realized. The person behind him wasn't my mom. It was Nolan, and he was holding something in his hand. A manila envelope. He set it down on the counter without a word. Then he looked at me and said, "You really want to go down this road?" I stared at the envelope, then back at him. And I said, "You really want to go down this road?" I stared at the envelope on the counter, the way Nolan said it like a threat, like I'd committed some kind of betrayal by refusing to just roll over one more time. My father stood behind him, arms still crossed, silent like always, not as a show of support, but because silence was his default stance when it came to conflict, especially when it didn't involve Nolan directly. That's how it had always been. Quiet endorsement, willful blindness. I leaned against the kitchen table and crossed my arms, mirroring my dad without realizing it. "What's in the envelope?" I asked. Nolan raised his eyebrows, smug. "Documentation. Proof that you agreed to pay for the party." I almost laughed. "So let me get this straight," I said, slowly, calmly. "You went through the effort of creating an entire file, just to make sure I keep footing the bill for a party where you publicly humiliated me." Nolan's smugness faltered for a second. Just a second. "It's not about the money," he said. "It's about you trying to make us all look bad. You've clearly been stewing on this stuff for years, Adrien. That's not healthy." "Healthy?" I repeated, the word sharp in my mouth. "You mean like the way I've been gaslit and dismissed for the better part of a decade? Like being laughed at while you sit at the head of a table I booked with money I earned?" Dad stepped in, holding up a hand. "Okay, that's enough. This doesn't need to turn into a whole drama. We're just here to settle this. Quietly." "I've been quiet my whole life," I said, my voice rising. "Where has that gotten me? You both only showed up now because I finally did something loud." Nolan looked away, jaw clenched. Dad just shook his head. "Look," Nolan said after a long silence. "I'll cover half the party bill. Just drop this whole passive-aggressive thing. Delete the folder, take down whatever you sent, and let's move on." It was the most I'd ever heard him concede, but it wasn't even close to enough. "You still don't get it," I said softly now. "This isn't about the money. It's not even about the party anymore." I walked to the counter, picked up the envelope he brought, and without looking inside, dropped it straight into the trash. Nolan's eyes flared. "What?" "I'm not going to argue over receipts," I said. "I kept records because I had to. Because it was the only way I could prove to myself that I wasn't imagining how much I did for all of you. You called it blackmail, but it was evidence. For me." I turned to Dad. And you? You never stepped in. Never once. Not when Nolan insulted me. Not when Lucy mocked me. Not when Mom said I was too sensitive. You stood there. Every single time. And now you're here to settle it. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence told me everything. Nolan scoffed and turned toward the door. You've really lost it. Maybe I had. Or maybe I just finally found myself. I'll wire you the money, he muttered as he left. But don't expect another invite. Dad lingered. For a moment, I thought he might say something meaningful. Maybe a reflection. A rare moment of clarity. Instead, he just muttered, You always did take things too personally, and walked out after Nolan. The door shut, and for the first time in my life, it felt like my door. The days that followed were quiet. No more texts. No more calls. It was like I'd been erased from the family group chat, both literally and figuratively. I wasn't surprised. Part of me even welcomed it. There was something freeing about not waiting for validation that was never going to come. I finished packing my apartment within a week. I canceled my lease and rented a small place 2 cities over, just enough to start over. No one asked where I was going. No one offered to help me move. That was fine. I didn't tell them about the new job offer I accepted, a remote consulting position that paid double what I used to earn. I didn't tell them I'd finally started dating again, or that I'd picked up my old hobby of painting, something I hadn't done since college because someone once called it a waste of time. They didn't get access to those parts of me anymore. One afternoon, while unpacking, I found an old birthday card in one of my boxes. From Nolan. It was from when I turned 16. It read, Happy birthday, nerd. Don't spend all day reading. Go live a little. And, even then, it had felt more like a jab than a celebration. I slid the card into the shredder. Weeks passed. One evening, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Adrien, a voice said softly. It's Mom. I didn't say anything. She filled the silence. I heard you moved. I didn't know until Lucy mentioned it. Is that why you're calling? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. No, she said quickly. I mean, yes. I've been thinking a lot. I waited. I found the folder, she said. The one you shared. I didn't look at it until last night. I couldn't. I don't know why. She paused, then said, No. I do know why. I didn't want to admit that it was real. That you were right. I sat down, the words heavier than I expected. I read everything, she continued. The receipts. The emails. Even the calendar invites. And I realized you've been showing up for us more than any of us ever did for you. I still didn't speak. I couldn't trust myself to. She sniffled. I'm sorry, Adrien. I know that might not be enough. I don't expect you to forgive us. I needed you to hear me say it. You were never invisible. We just chose not to look. There it was. The apology I'd waited my whole life to hear. And the strangest thing? It didn't change everything. But it did change something. I let the silence hang a little longer. Then I said, Thank you for saying that. She exhaled. Would it be okay if I came to visit? Just to talk. I thought about it. Then I said, Maybe. Not yet. But maybe. We said goodbye. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I felt like I was no longer holding my breath. A few months later, I got a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. I found this at the bottom of a drawer. Thought you might want it back. And it was a photo. Me and Nolan. From when we were kids. Maybe 8 and 10. Both of us sitting on the roof of the garage, legs swinging, sun in our eyes. On the back, Nolan had written something new. Maybe we were actual family. Once. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I slid it into the back of a drawer. I didn't know what the future held. I wasn't sure if things would ever fully heal. But I knew this. I wasn't the spare anymore. I was finally the main character in my own story.